The night was cold and silent, the kind of silence that makes every small sound feel loud. A man named Daniel sat near the fireplace with his old loyal dog, Max. The flames flickered softly, painting shadows on the wooden walls of the small house. Outside, snow covered the ground in a thick white blanket, and the wind carried a low hum through the trees. Daniel closed his eyes for a moment, listening to the crackle of burning wood. He thought the night would pass quietly, just like many others in his lonely cabin. But Max suddenly lifted his head, ears sharp, body tense. The dog growled in a low voice, staring at the door. Daniel frowned. He had lived here for years and knew the sounds of the forest, owls, foxes, even wolves. But this sound was different. It was faint, almost like a cry, a strange noise carried by the wind. It was not human, and it was not any animal he had heard before. Max barked once, sharp and urgent. His tail was stiff, his eyes fixed on the darkness outside. Daniel felt a chill. He picked up the flashlight from the table and stood up. The wooden floor creaked under his boots. He slowly opened the door and the icy air rushed inside. The night outside was darker than usual. Clouds had covered the moon, making the snow glow only faintly. Daniel stepped out, Max at his side. The dog sniffed the air, growling as the strange sound came again. This time Daniel was sure. It was a weak whimper, broken and trembling like someone in pain. He walked through the snow, each step heavy, his breath fogging in the freezing air. The sound grew clearer, leading him toward the trees near the edge of his land. Max ran ahead, barking once, then waiting for him to follow. Daniel felt his heartbeat quicken. He wondered if someone had gotten lost in the storm. Then under the shadow of the trees, his flashlight beam caught something unusual. At first he thought it was just a bundle of snow-covered clothes, but then it moved, shivering. Curling tighter into itself, Daniel froze. His light revealed a small figure, no bigger than a child. It was a girl, or at least she looked like one. Her skin glowed faintly in the dark, pale blue with strange markings that pulsed softly like light underwater. Her hair was silver white, tangled and full of snowflakes. She was wearing torn, thin clothing, nothing to protect her from the freezing night. Max stopped near her, sniffing carefully. His growl softened into a curious whine. The girl raised her head slowly, her eyes met Daniel's. Large, bright and not like any human eyes, they shimmered with fear and exhaustion, but also a silent plea for help. Daniel's breath caught in his chest. He had heard stories of strange things in the sky, rumors told by travelers, but never had he believed them. Yet here, right in front of him, was proof. An alien girl, small, fragile, and freezing in the snow. The girl tried to speak, but the sound that left her lips was broken. A soft melody of words Daniel could not understand. Her voice cracked with cold. She held something small in her hand, a piece of metal glowing faintly. Before dropping it into the snow, Daniel crouched down, ignoring the shock that filled his mind. He took off his thick coat and wrapped it gently around her trembling body. The girl shivered violently, but her glowing eyes softened when she felt the warmth. Max pressed closer as if to guard her. "Easy now," Daniel whispered, though he knew she could not understand. His voice was calm, steady. The fear he felt was pushed down by the sight of her weakness. She was no threat, she was a child, alone and cold. He lifted her carefully, feeling how light she was, almost weightless in his arms. Her head rested against his chest, her skin still glowing faintly under the coat. Max barked once, urging him to return to the cabin. The wind howled louder, carrying the strange sound farther into the night. As Daniel walked back, he could not shake the feeling of danger. If she was here, then where had she come from? Was someone else searching for her? Or was something hunting her? His mind spun with questions, but he had no answers. Inside the cabin, the fire crackled warmly. Daniel laid her gently on the couch. Her small hands clutched the coat tightly. Max sat beside her, eyes never leaving her. Daniel stared at the strange markings on her skin, glowing softly like stars on a dark sky. The girl opened her eyes again. Just for a moment, her lips moved, whispering a faint sound, almost like help. Daniel's heart tightened. He nodded slowly, though she may not have understood. In that moment, he made a silent promise. He would not let her die out here. Outside, the wind continued to howl. The night was far from over, and Daniel knew this was only the beginning of something far greater than he had ever imagined. Daniel placed the little alien girl near the fire, her body wrapped in his heavy coat. Her skin still glowed faintly under the dim light of the cabin, But her shivers slowly grew weaker as the warmth reached her fragile form. Max, the loyal dog, sat close, his brown eyes full of concern. His tail thumped once against the floor, as if he knew she was now part of their small world. Daniel poured hot water into a mug. He had no soup, only tea. But he hoped the steam might help her. He held it close to her lips. She looked at it with wide eyes, confused. Her small hands trembled as she touched the mug. Then she tried to sip, coughing softly but swallowing a little. Daniel sighed, relief in his chest. He spoke in a low voice. Though he knew she would not understand, "You're safe now. You'll be all right." The girl blinked slowly, her glowing eyes fixed on him as if studying his face. Her lips moved, but no clear words came, only soft sounds, musical and strange. Max inched closer, pressing his nose to her hand. At first she pulled back in fear, but then she let him stay. Her tiny fingers curled into his fur. The dog seemed proud, wagging his tail and sitting beside her like a guard. Daniel almost smiled. He had never seen Max accept a stranger so quickly. The fire crackled, filling the silence outside. The wind howled like a beast circling the cabin. Daniel glanced at the window, unease tugging at him. He had questions with no answers. Where had she come from? Was she alone? Or was someone hunting her? The girl shifted slightly, reaching into the torn cloth at her side. She pulled out a small device, cracked and sparking faint light. Daniel leaned closer. It looked like no human machine he had ever seen. She pointed to the sky, then touched her chest, and then the broken device. Her eyes filled with sorrow. Daniel understood. She had fallen from the sky. The device was her link to her people, but it was broken. He nodded slowly, pointing at himself, then at her, then made a gesture of protection. She tilted her head. Confusion softening into trust. Hours passed. Daniel added more wood to the fire. He prepared some bread and cheese, placing it on the table. He wasn't sure if she could eat it, but when he handed her a small piece, she tasted carefully, then chewed slowly. Her glowing eyes brightened just a little. For the first time, Daniel saw a faint smile on her lips. It was small, fragile, but it was real. Something stirred in his heart, a mix of awe and protectiveness. This child, this alien girl, was not dangerous. She was lost, cold, and scared. Max rested his head on her lap, and she stroked his fur gently. Her glow softened, no longer sharp but calm. Daniel leaned back in his chair, rubbing his tired eyes. He knew the night was not finished. Danger still lingered outside. He remembered the stories. Strange lights had been seen over the forest weeks ago. Some travelers spoke of a crash in the distance. Rumors spread about government agents searching the area. If they found her here, they would not treat her kindly. Daniel clenched his fists. He had lived alone for years. He thought he wanted peace, but now fate had brought him something different. A responsibility greater than himself. He looked at the girl again, curled up with Max beside her. Her glowing skin reflected the fire's light like a star trapped in human walls. The girl whispered softly, a word repeated twice. Daniel could not understand it, but the tone was clear. She was calling for someone. Maybe her family, maybe her people. His heart ached. He remembered his own daughter, who had died years ago. The pain returned, but it made his decision firm. He would protect this child. No matter what, as midnight passed, the storm outside grew worse. Snow slammed against the window. The cabin shook with the roar of the wind. Daniel checked the door and reinforced the lock. He could not risk strangers finding them tonight. Suddenly, Max growled again. His ears pricked up, his gaze fixed on the window. Daniel rushed to it, flashlight in hand. He scanned the darkness for a moment. He thought he saw lights moving between the trees, sharp and white, not like lanterns. His chest tightened. Someone else was out there. He turned back quickly. The girl was watching him, her glowing eyes wide with fear. She seemed to sense what he did. Daniel forced a calm smile and put a finger to his lips. Asking for silence, she nodded slowly, clutching Max's fur as if he was her shield. Daniel moved to the fire and lowered the flames. Shadows grew thicker inside the cabin. Outside, the strange lights faded into the storm, but his unease grew heavier. Whoever they were, they would come again. He sat near the girl, speaking softly. "Don't worry. I'll keep you safe." His voice was steady, even though fear gnawed at him. The girl placed her small glowing hand over his. Her touch was warm now, not cold. Daniel felt the weight of her trust. The night stretched on. Long and heavy, the storm raged. The fire burned low and Daniel kept watch. His mind was full of questions, but one truth was clear. His life had changed forever the moment he stepped outside. And now, with this fragile being under his roof, he knew there was no turning back. The morning came slowly, the storm had passed, leaving the world outside buried under thick snow. The forest was quiet, the kind of silence that felt heavy. Daniel opened the door for a moment and breathed the frozen air. His eyes scanned the white fields. No lights, no shadows, only stillness, but deep inside, he knew the danger had not gone inside the cabin. The little alien girl was awake. She sat near the fire, wrapped in Daniel's coat. Her glowing skin seemed calmer now. No longer flashing with fear, Max rested at her feet, tail wagging whenever she moved. The bond between them had grown in a single night, as if the dog understood her pain. Daniel placed bread and water on the table. The girl accepted with a soft nod. She ate slowly, her large, shimmering eyes never leaving him. Daniel tried to smile. "Good morning," he said, though he knew she would not understand. Still, she repeated softly, her voice broken but gentle. "Morn." The single word startled him. She was trying. She looked at him with a sudden seriousness. Her small hands reached for the broken device she had carried. The metallic object sparked faint light. Its surface was cracked. Wires sticking out, she tapped it, then pointed at the sky. Daniel's eyes followed her finger. The message was clear. She belonged to the stars. And this machine was her key. Daniel leaned closer. She spoke in her strange language, musical but filled with sorrow. He shook his head slowly. "I don't understand." She frowned, then grabbed a piece of charcoal from the fireplace. She bent down, drawing on the wooden floor. Her lines were rough but clear enough. A circle for a planet, small dots for stars, a long oval shape crashing down, and then a stick figure, herself alone. She pointed at the picture, then at her glowing skin, then back to the broken device. Tears filled her eyes. Daniel's chest tightened. He understood the story. She had fallen. Maybe her ship had broken. She was separated, lost, and freezing. His hand rested on her shoulder gently. "You're not alone now," he whispered. She stared at him, her glowing eyes shimmering with something new. "Trust," Max barked once, breaking the silence. His ears were sharp. He ran to the window and growled low. Daniel froze. He peeked outside. The forest still looked calm, but he knew the dog sensed something he could not. The memory of last night's moving lights returned to his mind. He turned back quickly. The girl was clutching the broken device, holding it close to her chest like a treasure. Daniel felt a surge of protectiveness. Whoever was out there, they could not take her. The girl moved closer to the fire, warming her hands. Then she pointed at Daniel's chest, tapped her small glowing fingers twice, and smiled faintly. Daniel blinked. "Me?" She nodded, then she pointed to herself, touching her chest, and spoke a soft word. It sounded like her name, delicate and strange. Daniel repeated it, his voice clumsy, but she laughed lightly. Her laugh was soft like wind chimes, and for the first time, the cabin felt less heavy. Hours passed. Daniel tried to repair the broken device. His hands worked with tools, but the technology was beyond him. Sparks flickered, circuits hummed, but nothing stayed alive. The girl watched silently, hope fading from her eyes each time the light died. Finally, Daniel sighed, setting it aside. "I can't fix it," he admitted, though she could not understand the words. Still, she reached out and touched his hand, shaking her head gently. Her eyes told him she did not blame him. He felt a warmth in his chest, not just from the fire, but from her trust. It reminded him of his daughter again, of promises he once failed to keep. This time he would not fail. The day stretched on. Daniel taught her simple words. Water, bread, fire, she repeated slowly, her alien voice bending around human sounds, sometimes wrong, sometimes right, but always trying. Max wagged his tail every time she managed a word. She laughed again, her glow softening into peace. But peace was fragile. In the afternoon, the sound of distant engines rolled across the forest. Low but clear, Daniel's body stiffened. He rushed to the window, squinting into the white horizon. A dark vehicle moved slowly near the tree line, its shape too sharp, too purposeful to belong to travelers. The girl sensed his fear. She ran to him, clutching his coat sleeve. Her glowing eyes wide, Daniel pulled her back. Closing the curtains, his mind raced. He knew they were searching. The question was, were they looking for her? Max barked loudly, circling the room. His fur bristled. Daniel grabbed his old rifle from the wall. He had not used it in years, but tonight he might need it. He looked at the girl. her fragile figure trembling. He knelt and whispered firmly, "I'll protect you." Even though she could not understand, the engines faded after some time. But the fear did not. Daniel kept the fire low, shadows stretching across the cabin. He felt the walls closing in. The girl sat silently, holding her broken device tight. Her glow flickered, dim with worry, as night approached. Daniel knew the truth. His quiet life was gone. The moment he found her, his path had changed. He was no longer just a man in the woods. He was her guardian now, and nothing would ever be the same. The night returned heavy and dark. The storm had ended, but silence carried a weight of unease. Daniel sat near the window, his rifle leaning against the wall. He watched the tree line, searching for movement. Max lay at the door, ears twitching, alert to every sound. The little alien girl slept near the fire, wrapped in blankets, her glow dim but steady. Daniel's eyes felt heavy, but he could not let sleep win. The memory of the strange vehicle from earlier kept gnawing at him. He knew the forest better than anyone, and he knew those tracks were not from hunters or travelers. Someone was searching, and they would not stop until they found what they wanted. Suddenly, Max growled low, his fur bristled, his eyes fixed on the window. Daniel tensed, grabbing the rifle. He peeked through the curtain in the distance. Faint lights moved between the trees. Too controlled, too sharp to be natural. His chest tightened. The strangers were back. He moved quickly, shaking the girl awake. Her glowing eyes opened wide, confusion turning into fear when she saw his tense expression. Daniel put a finger to his lips, whispering, "Quiet." She nodded. Clutching the broken device tightly, Max barked once, short and urgent. Daniel hushed him, pulling him close. The lights grew brighter, sweeping across the snow. A vehicle stopped near the edge of the forest, and shadows of men stepped out. Their dark figures moved with purpose, scanning the area with handheld beams. Daniel's stomach twisted. These were no simple searchers. They looked like agents, trained and ready. He rushed to the cellar door, pulling it open. The air below was damp and cold. He pointed down, urging the girl to hide. She hesitated, fear in her eyes. But Max nudged her gently. She understood. Crawling down into the shadows, Daniel closed the door softly. Covering it with a rug moments later, heavy knocks thundered at the cabin door. Daniel froze, his heart pounded. The agents had come faster than he thought. He took a deep breath and opened the door just a crack. The cold wind rushed in, and a tall man in a black coat stared at him. "Evening," the man said, his voice flat. "We're investigating something in the area. Did you hear or see anything unusual last night?" His eyes were sharp, too sharp. Daniel forced a calm face. "No, just the storm." "Nothing unusual." The man studied him, his gaze sliding past Daniel into the cabin. For a moment, Daniel thought he might step inside, but instead the agent nodded slowly. "If you see anything, report it immediately." Behind him, others were scanning the ground, their flashlights moving like hungry eyes. Daniel nodded stiffly. "Of course." He closed the door slowly. Locking it tight, his hand shook slightly. He leaned against the wall, breathing hard. The girl remained hidden below. Max stood guard near the cellar. His growl low and steady. Minutes crawled by. Shadows passed across the windows. Footsteps crunched in the snow. Daniel dared not move. He prayed they would leave. Finally, the sounds grew distant. Engines roared, fading into the forest. The night returned to silence. But the silence was now heavy with dread. He pulled open the cellar door. The girl climbed out, her glowing eyes wide with fear. She looked at him, searching his face for answers. Daniel knelt, resting his hand gently on her shoulder. "It's all right now, they're gone, but they'll be back." She didn't understand the words, but she felt the warning in his tone. She sat close to the fire, clutching the broken device. Her glow flickered nervously. Max curled beside her, licking her hand as if to calm her. Daniel sat in his chair, staring at the flames. His mind was racing. If those men returned and searched properly, they would find her. He realized the truth. He could not keep her here forever. His cabin was too close, too visible. If he wanted to keep her safe, he had to move her. Somewhere far from roads, far from eyes. Only the mountains could hide them, but moving her would be dangerous. The agents were patrolling the forest, their eyes sharp, their ears trained. One mistake could expose her. He clenched his fists. He had lived his life avoiding trouble, but now trouble had found him, and he had no choice but to fight it. The girl watched him quietly. As if she sensed his thoughts, she reached out, Placing her glowing hand on his, her touch was warm, steady. Daniel looked into her shimmering eyes, and he saw not fear but trust. She believed he would protect her. No matter the cost, the night dragged on. Daniel did not sleep. Every creak of the wood, every gust of wind made him tense. He sat with his rifle ready, Max at his side. The girl finally drifted into uneasy rest, her glow pulsing softly like a heartbeat. Daniel stared into the fire, his mind heavy with questions and fears. Who were these men? How much did they know? Were they searching for the girl or for something else? He had no answers, only the weight of responsibility pressing on his shoulders. Outside, the forest lay silent under the snow, but Daniel knew silence did not mean safety. The threat was close, closer than ever, and when it returned, he would be ready. The morning sun rose pale over the snow, but its light brought no comfort. Daniel stood outside his cabin. Scanning the tree line, the world looked peaceful, yet he knew danger hid behind the silence. The agents had been close last night. Too close. If they returned, they would not stop at knocking. They would tear through his home, and then the girl would be gone. Inside, the little alien girl sat by the fire. Max curled beside her like a shield. Her glowing skin was dimmer now, not from cold but from worry. She clutched her broken device as if it was the only thing left of her world. Daniel watched her for a moment, his chest heavy. He knew he could not let her stay here any longer. He moved to the table, pulling out an old map. The forest stretched wide, but there was only one place safe enough: the mountains. Far into the north, hidden valleys no one visited. He had hunted there in younger days. He knew the trails, he knew the caves. That was where they needed to go. Daniel packed quickly. His hands moved with purpose, though his heart raced. He placed bread, dried meat, water, and warm clothes into a small bag. He found rope, matches, and a small lantern. Then he pulled out an old sled he had built years ago for carrying firewood. It would carry the girl across the snow, faster than she could walk. The girl watched silently. Confusion in her glowing eyes, Daniel knelt and pointed to the mountains drawn on the map, then pointed to her, to himself, and to Max, finally. He drew a line between the cabin and the mountains. She tilted her head, then slowly nodded. She understood enough. He was planning to take her away. Max barked softly, tail wagging. As if agreeing to the plan, Daniel gave his head a pat. "We'll need you, boy," he whispered. The dog's eyes gleamed with loyalty. He had guarded Daniel for years. Now he would guard the girl too. By afternoon, the sled was ready. Daniel wrapped the girl in blankets, securing her against the cold. Her eyes looked at him with trust. Though fear still lingered, he pulled the sled rope tightly. Max trotted ahead, ready to lead. Daniel took one last look at the cabin. His home for many years, he knew he might never return. They moved into the forest. The snow crunched beneath Daniel's boots. The air was sharp and cold, but the silence was thick. Every sound seemed louder than it should be. Max guided them along hidden paths, avoiding the open fields. The girl peeked out from the blankets, her glowing eyes wide with curiosity and fear. For hours they pushed forward. The trees closed around them. Dark and endless, Daniel's muscles ached. But he did not stop. The image of the agents kept his feet moving. He knew they were not far, searching, hunting. As night fell, they stopped near a rocky ridge. Daniel built a small fire. Carefully shielding the smoke, the girl ate the food he offered, then leaned against Max, her glow faint but calm. Daniel sat nearby, rifle across his lap. His eyes scanned the shadows. Suddenly, Max lifted his head, ears sharp. Daniel froze. He heard it too, the hum of engines far away. The agents were still searching. And they were closing in. He doused the fire quickly, covering the embers with snow. Darkness swallowed them. The girl's eyes shimmered, reflecting faint light. Daniel placed a finger on his lips, asking for silence. She nodded, clutching the broken device to her chest. Max growled low, his body tense. Daniel's grip tightened on the rifle, but the sound of engines slowly faded into the distance. They waited in silence until the night grew deeper. Only then did Daniel allow himself to breathe. He looked at the girl. Her face tired but brave, he whispered softly, "We keep moving." She did not know the words, but she understood the meaning. The next day, the forest grew wilder. Snow piled high, branches heavy with frost. Daniel's body ached with every pull of the sled, but he did not stop. Max stayed ahead, guiding them with sure steps. The girl hummed softly sometimes, her strange voice carrying a melody that seemed both sad and hopeful. It gave Daniel strength. By evening, they reached the edge of the mountains. Tall peaks loomed above, sharp against the sky. Daniel knew the climb would be hard, but it would also hide them. The agents would not risk chasing too far, not into these wild lands. He built another small fire in a hollow between rocks. The girl warmed her hands, then surprised him by offering him a small piece of the glowing crystal she carried with her. Daniel hesitated, then accepted. The warmth from the fragment spread through his palm. Stronger than any fire, he looked at her. She was giving him trust, giving him part of her world. Max barked once, breaking the quiet. Daniel looked up at the sky, his breath caught far above. Lights moved across the stars, not like planes, not like satellites. They moved too smoothly, too brightly. His heart raced. Could it be her people searching for her? Or was it something else? The girl looked up too. Her glowing eyes widened. She whispered softly, a word repeated Daniel could not understand. But her voice was filled with longing. Tears glistened on her cheeks. He placed a hand on her shoulder, grounding her, reminding her she was not alone. The night closed in, the fire burned low, and the mountains towered above them. Daniel knew the hardest part was yet to come. The escape had only just begun. The mountain air was sharp and biting. Daniel pulled the sled carefully across the frozen slope. His breath came out in clouds. Max ran ahead, his paws crunching in the snow. The little alien girl sat wrapped in blankets, her glowing eyes fixed on the peaks above. She seemed both hopeful and afraid, as if the mountains promised safety yet warned of danger. They climbed higher, away from the paths men usually traveled. Daniel chose trails hidden by rocks and pine. His body ached from the long journey, but his determination pushed him forward. He knew the agents would not give up. He knew they were close. By midday the sound came again, distant but growing. Engines. The hum vibrated through the mountains. Echoing between cliffs, Daniel stopped, his chest tight. Max barked sharply, tail stiff. The girl's glow flickered nervously. She clutched the broken device tighter, as if it could somehow protect her. Daniel pushed forward, faster now. He led them into a narrow pass. The rocks closed in like walls. The sled scraped against stone. His hands stung from the cold, but he did not stop. Behind them, the engines grew louder. Then voices carried through the air. Sharp, commanding, Max growled. Daniel pulled the sled harder, but soon he heard footsteps crunching in the snow behind them. He turned quickly, rifle in hand. Shadows moved between the trees. Dark figures with flashlights and weapons. The agents had found them. "Stop where you are," a voice shouted, its tone cold. The light swept over Daniel, then fixed on the sled. The girl gasped. Hiding under the blankets, Daniel raised the rifle. His voice steady, though his heart raced. "She's not yours." The men spread out, circling. Their boots broke the snow. Their guns gleamed under the pale sun. The leader stepped forward, face hidden under a dark visor. His words were sharp. "That thing does not belong here. Hand it over, or you will regret it." Daniel's jaw clenched. He tightened his grip on the rifle. Max barked furiously, standing between the girl and the men. The girl peeked out, her glowing eyes wide with fear. Daniel shook his head slowly. "No, she's just a child. You'll have to go through me." The agents raised their weapons. The tension cracked the air. Daniel's heart pounded. He knew he could not win against so many, but he also knew he could not give her up. For years he had lived in silence, running from his own pain, but now he had found something worth fighting for. Suddenly the air shifted. A deep hum filled the sky. The agents froze, looking upward. Daniel followed their gaze. A bright light pierced through the clouds. Growing stronger, the hum turned into a roar. Wind swept across the mountain, throwing snow into the air. A ship descended, massive and sleek. Its surface shimmered with colors Daniel had never seen. Lights pulsed across its frame like living veins. The agents staggered back, shouting. Some aimed their weapons at the sky, but their hands trembled. The girl's eyes filled with tears. Her small hands reached upward. She whispered the same word again and again. Daniel did not understand it, but he felt its meaning. Her people had come. The ship hovered, casting a beam of light onto the snow. The wind howled. The agents scrambled, some shouting orders, others aiming their rifles at Daniel and the girl. The leader barked, "Take them now!" Max lunged, teeth bared, knocking one man off his feet. Daniel fired the rifle into the air, the shot echoing through the cliffs. The agents flinched, and in that moment the beam from the ship widened, bathing the girl in its glow. Her glow brightened, stronger than ever. She stepped out of the blankets, her small figure shining like a star. The agents staggered back. Shielding their eyes, the leader cursed, trying to push forward, but the force of the ship's light held him at bay. Daniel shielded his face, the wind tearing at his coat. He saw the girl standing tall now, no longer weak. Her glow pulsed with power. She looked at him, her eyes full of gratitude, and whispered softly, "Safe." The beam lifted her slowly. She reached out, her small hand brushing against Daniel's for one last moment. His heart twisted. He wanted to hold on, but he knew this was her world. Not his. She belonged with her people. The agents shouted. Some fired shots into the air, but the bullets never touched the ship. They dissolved against its shimmering surface. The leader screamed in rage, but his voice was drowned by the roar of the engines. Max barked wildly, running back and forth. The snow swirled in chaos. The beam grew brighter, and then in a burst of light, the girl vanished into the ship. The glow faded, leaving the mountains in silence once more. The ship lingered only a moment longer. A booming sound rolled through the air. Then it rose higher and higher, disappearing into the clouds. The agents stood frozen, their faces pale. Their leader cursed again, ordering retreat. They rushed back to their vehicles. Defeated, Daniel fell to his knees, exhausted. His rifle slipped from his hands. Max pressed against him, whining softly. The snow settled around them, silence returning to the mountains. The girl was gone, safe at last. But the ache in Daniel's chest was deep. He had protected her, but the goodbye had torn a part of him away. He looked up at the sky, the clouds slowly parting for a brief moment. He thought he saw a light wink in the distance, as if she was saying farewell. His lips trembled into a faint smile. He whispered softly, "Be safe, little one." The mountains were quiet again. Only the wind whispered across the snow. Daniel stood there for a long time, staring at the empty sky. His heart was heavy. Yet there was also peace. The little alien girl was gone, safe with her people, but her presence still lingered like a warm flame in his chest. Max pressed against his side, whining softly. The loyal dog's brown eyes seemed to ask where she had gone. Daniel knelt, rubbing his head. "She's safe, boy." "That's what matters," his voice cracked. But his words were steady. He had done what he promised. He had kept her alive. As he rose, he noticed something on the snow where the beam of light had touched. A small crystal glowing faintly. Unlike any stone from Earth, Daniel picked it up carefully. Its warmth spread through his palm, filling him with calm. It was a gift. A piece of her world left behind for him. He slipped it into his pocket, knowing it was more than just a keepsake. It was a reminder of the bond they had shared. A symbol of trust and gratitude, he whispered. "Thank you, little one." His voice carried softly into the cold air. The agents were gone, their tracks already half buried by snow. Daniel knew they would return someday, searching, but he no longer feared them. He had faced them and stood his ground. He had chosen compassion over fear, and in doing so, he had changed more than just one life. The climb back down the mountain was slow. Daniel felt every ache in his bones, but Max trotted beside him. Loyal as ever, the sled was lighter now. But emptier too. Daniel pulled it with quiet steps, his mind replaying every moment, from the first strange sound outside his cabin to the final beam of light. When they reached the forest, the world seemed different. The trees whispered in the wind and the snow sparkled brighter. Daniel wondered if it was his imagination, or if the crystal in his pocket carried some of the girl's glow into the earth itself. Whatever it was, he felt less alone. Back at the cabin, Daniel lit the fire. The warmth filled the room, but it felt larger than before, emptier. He looked at the chair where she had sat, the blanket she had used, the corner where Max had guarded her. Everything reminded him of her. He sat down slowly, the crystal glowing faintly in his hand. Days turned into weeks. The forest returned to its usual silence, but Daniel noticed changes. The animals seemed calmer near his cabin. Birds perched closer, foxes lingered longer, even Max seemed more alert, as if sensing an unseen presence. Daniel wondered if the girl's gift had touched the land too. One evening, as the fire flickered low, Daniel heard Max barking outside, not the urgent bark of danger, but a sharp call. Daniel stepped out. The sky above was clear, and among the stars, one light shone brighter, moving slowly across the heavens. His heart skipped. He knew it was no plane, no satellite. It was them passing above. He raised the crystal high, and for a moment, it pulsed brighter in his hand. The light in the sky flickered. Almost like a reply, tears filled his eyes. He whispered into the cold night, "Safe journey, little one." "Remember me," Max wagged his tail, barking joyfully at the glowing star. From that night on, Daniel carried the crystal wherever he went. It became his guide, his reminder. His once lonely life now held purpose. He began to carve her story into wood and stone, symbols of her people as best as he remembered. He wanted the world to know kindness was stronger than fear. Travelers who passed through the forest sometimes spoke of strange warmth near Daniel's cabin. They told stories of glowing lights and a man who had seen wonders. Daniel never confirmed nor denied them. He only smiled, his hand resting on the crystal in his pocket. The years passed slowly, but the memory never faded. Daniel grew older, his hair turning gray, but the fire in his heart stayed young. Every night he looked to the stars, searching for that single light. And sometimes, just sometimes, he saw it flicker, reminding him she had not forgotten. Max aged too, loyal until the end when he passed. Daniel buried him beneath the tallest pine, placing the crystal on the grave for one night. The glow lit the snow around them. Like a final farewell, Daniel whispered, "You protected her well, old friend." Even as loneliness returned, Daniel never felt empty. The bond he had shared with the alien girl lived on in his heart. He knew he had played a part in something greater than himself, something beyond Earth. On his final winter, Daniel sat by the fire, the crystal glowing softly in his hand. His eyes grew heavy, but peace filled him outside. The night sky blazed with stars, and above them all, one light moved slowly, steady and bright. The little alien girl had grown, but she remembered her people passed again, leaving a streak of brilliance across the sky. And for one last moment, Daniel's heart lifted, knowing he had not been forgotten. The fire dimmed, the cabin fell silent, but the crystal glowed on, carrying the story of a man, a dog, and a little alien girl who had once found each other on a freezing night.